Hi.
Hi.
Anyway.
Okay.
Today,
we're gonna do some stuff.
now we made this thing, right? Kind of the same fashion we made that thing. So it has been coped to fit the axle, and we're gonna match the angle with our pinion. We have 4 degrees tacked in place. You should always tack things in place in case they're not exactly where you need them, right?
Yeah.
We have bars. Let's show them the bars that we're working with. So we have that pan hard bar.
This is the Pinard bar that we did.
That we're not using. So we have that for material. We have this old link here that we're not using. Obviously that'll be a straight bar there. We got to bend that one more.
So that it comes over and meets.
So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to show you how to bend this material without a tubing bender. But first we're going to cut this guy apart. We got to cut that off and clean it up. We're using these because they kind of already have bungs in them. It's a giant Lego machine, but we're pretty much using what we have. We have to keep clearance for the fuel tank, so none of the links are going to go on this side. They're all going to come over here. Bracket here to match. Come triangulated Heim joint. Copy?
Yes.
So we're going to cut it as close to this end as we can, and we're just going to grind away these TIG welds here and make that nice and flush and pretty again. Cut as least amount as possible off of here so we can use this full length if we need to. Straight bar. DOM, all this stuff is DOM, right? So this is gonna be the top piece. Gonna go here to here, right? So we're gonna now make that joint.
We gotta salvage bungs.
We're gonna have to salvage the bung off the end of this one and off the end of this one so we can reuse those. So we're trying to figure out the length on that bar. So we're attaching the Heim to the brackets. The brackets that were made that are gonna go here, and then we're gonna put the bushing on its bracket. Right. So we can figure out the length of a said bar. So here's the end with the Heim and the brackets that are gonna go to this bar. So now we're gonna center it on that bar, make sure, because that's not gonna go, that is the place it has to go. So, but you wanna do it like that?
I don't know, that would
Bring it down lower?
bring it down lower and also possibly give us enough room here so that we don't have to cut that.
We might have clearance issues that we didn't think of before.
Well, we weren't gonna do it this way before.
Yeah, we weren't gonna do it this way before, but now we are.
But I think we could do it that way.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Yeah.
Let's tack it in.
Let's find center.
What?
Hey, let's find center. You wanna find center? Let's find center. Come on, let's find center. This is the tool you use to find center.
But basically what I was thinking is measuring from here, you know,
Finding center of
total
the-
distance.
I mean, we can measure from the outside of the frame too.
Well, no, I mean, this is a straight edge.
You're a straight edge.
I got 37.5, so half of 37.5.
18 3/4.
18 3/4, so that would be our center mark. 18. And then measure the distance from these guys. 2 1/4 or 2 1/2. So we need 1 1/2 from either side of this mark.
Marks.
That's not even right.
No, it's not. How did you measure that?
Who measured that?
You said 2 1/4? 2 3/4, and then you did 1 1/2 inches?
Yeah, right?
Always double check your measurements, kids.
It's 2.5. Did I go 1.5 inches?
You did an inch and a half. You should have done 3/4. You big dumb idiot.
Well, it's 2.5 inches. That bracket's 2.5 inches, so half of 2.5 is 1.25 inches. So what I should have done is this. Right? 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches. Woo!
That more like it? Good again.
Fire melted metal. 17 5/8. 17 5/8. Come on. All right. So in case you didn't know, notice when it comes to things, as you saw, I kind of messed up on a few of the measurements with the marks and things. And you should always measure, measure, remeasure, and then measure again.
And
Measure some more.
And then
I think I brought this up in a previous episode.
And then have your grandma come over and check it?
Yeah, I mean, really. Because you don't want your to be wrong. We've been checking under here, making sure it's square. And we have 17 5/8 of an inch all the way around this. And now, if you're tacking things, you know, we tack things so that they're easy to cut off. Not that we want to cut them off, but if it so happens, make them easy and accessible to cut off. Don't put them in the corner of something, because you'll never be able to cut that thing off. Well, you will, but you'll destroy whatever you're trying to fix.
Hi.
Tell them what you did.
I did a thing. I cut off the tacks.
Oh no! Does that mean we have to make a whole new thing?
No.
And then, okay, so why did we do that?
Because down here at this angle, however it was, like that, no. Like this.
Yeah, it was like that.
It was, the bar was
It was at a downward angle.
It was at a downward angle.
We didn't like that.
We want more of an upward angle.
Yeah. Upward or level.
From the frame.
Yeah.
Because this link is so short. So you want more of a upward angle. Like that, or level.
Yeah.
Because geometry.
What's geometry? Is that something I should have learned in math?
Probably.
Right.
So as the axle goes down, it is going to swing, as they say. So with this, the way it was, it would bind quicker. Alright.
So we're just gonna tack this in place now, get new measurements. We didn't cut the links, we didn't do any of that yet, because we didn't like the way everything was panning out. So now we're gonna tack this back into place. We like this. So now we're gonna take some more measurements and do our straight bar length and cut up, go back to what we were doing before.
Yeah. We can get more bar length if we rotate this back. Just saying. So we're gonna rotate this back slightly to get a 70% length on this bar. Basically, it's 70% of this length here. So this is 25 inches center to center. 70% is 17 and a half. We're at what, 15 right now?
Yeah.
From what I understand.
16 where we're at now.
16. So we need an inch and a half to be at 70%.
Well, technically we could flip this back, but then this bar would be in the way.
That's what I was talking about before, remember? And we were worried about it binding. So if we rotate the whole
we just
thing
rotate
back,
it back an inch and a half.
then we're at 70%.
And we're at 70%. Yeah.
Ta-da!
And the whole rule with 70%, I don't know where that rule comes from, but basically if you can keep your bars parallel, and the shortest bar at 70% length of the longest bars, basically the outer bars versus the inner bar, it airs up, it'll level itself out and will cause less binding.
Yes.
Or something.
So now I have to cut these tacks. I already cut those tacks, now I gotta cut these tacks. Look like Fred Durst right now. And that's not a good thing.
Oh, the chocolate starfish in the hot dog flavored water! So you can see, rotated back 1.5 inches, and we're just trying to keep... Oh yeah, we tacked this in place too, right?
No.
We're trying to keep this angle straight, which it is. Now, we can do our measurements and make our bar.
Yay!
Woo! Oh, right.
Oh, hey, hey!
So, yeah, I usually like to leave about 1 inch of thread, just in case you need to make some adjustments later. You need to be able to go in or whatever, right?
That's 1 inch.
About 1 inch. It's about six counts on the thread. 13.25 length before bungs. Alright, so we got this piece of square tube. It's going to give us a straight edge so that we know we keep these brackets on the same plane. You know what I mean? And it just so happens it's long enough from frame to frame, so we got it resting on the frame side to side so that we know these guys are going the same direction. I'm going to throw a tack on it and double check the heights on the center of the bolt here and there once it's tacked into place, just as a double check.
Then that allows us to put this where we need it.
And then this bar will go there, come over here.
We just have to put a little bit more bend on it.
That's plenty long enough at that spot. Make sure that we have the room for this guy, that it'll reach once it's rebent. I think we can pretty much go anywhere we want. So we cut them loose out of the old bar, and this will go back on the shelf. Maybe for something else. They might need that length for something. By shelf, I mean in the scrap pile. And then what we did with the bungs is obviously we cleaned the welds off and then did a bit of a taper on it. Johnny was cleaning up the inside of the pipe, and then we put a nice chamfer on it. See, now we have a nice V bevel, a nice joint to fill up with weld. So when you're tacking stuff, tack it in what I call the four corners, right? So essentially you want to do opposite ends, right? And it also will help if you had a ground.
So you don't shock yourself?
It doesn't really hurt that bad. When I said four corners, what's opposite of that would be right about here. I fused it on the first shot. I just want to make sure I got a good fuse. Now the way these bungs are made, they fit perfectly nice and swell in the center of the pipe. So I don't have to worry about squaring it, it's gonna self-square. Whoop, I hit some dirt. Did you see that?
Yeah.
We hit some
Landed on my shorts.
hit some dirt there, some kind of crazy grinding dust or whatever. But there you have it. Tacked on four corners. I know you can't tack round because there's no corners on round. Well, you know what I mean when I say 4 corners. You create a box with your tacks. Do you understand? You see what I'm saying? Don't be an idiot.
Dumb. Don't be a dumb head.
So there you go. There's the upper bar installed. Ish. And then we're just gonna put the other bar from here to there. And in case you're curious, we have not much room here because our travel is gonna move that far. It's gonna move from the bottom to the top. So we already knew this was gonna happen. So we have plans on cutting this bar out. So Johnny just ground this down. And then we have this guy we're not going to use. We only need 2 of them for the next piece, right? So instead of welding this cap, we're going to use this bung. We're going to thread this all the way in so the sand, yes, the sand doesn't have a place to go, and hopefully we can compact it enough to make this bend. So this is us
Doing this stuff.
We've got this tube. We're gonna bend this using heat. In order to do that, you gotta pack it full of sand, compact it so that there's no place for, you know, the material to go. Kind of makes it a solid piece at that point, right? I wouldn't recommend welding without a hood on. That's why I did all the tacks. So I did it closing my eyes. For safety reasons, we're going to take a grinder. We're going to grind off all these hard edges.
Yeah.
But essentially, we're done
with that.
So we have our anvil with a piece of 6-inch tube attached to it, and another, what is that, inch tube? Inch and a half, whatever. And essentially, we're just going to go around it. Actually, probably more like this. Keep that fatter, a wider thingy on it. So you're gonna see us do that with some heat. Heat!
Yay!
Oh, wait.
Safety first.
All right. We want to make this bend just a little further back. So we're gonna try to keep it on this contour. We're gonna superheat the whole thing until it's nice red hot, and we'll have to keep checking to see if the angle's correct. Here we go.
Oh,
there we go.
Oh, there it is. Pretty close, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, looks good to me, man.
Tight.
Well, it's still pretty hot, so I'm using gloves, but when you have threads around superheated metal, you don't want to leave anything in there without, you know, whatever. I don't have the right tap to chase these threads, so I want to remove this before it cools down, otherwise I won't get it back. And this is going to be interesting because we have sand in here. Woo! Look at all that moisture coming out. What's left of it. I'm going to dump it off.
Yeah, did you see it discolored? I did.
So as you can see, we put this in. You see there's a big gap here, but obviously a lesser gap here. What we did, we measure this and this. We don't have a nut here yet. We got to go to the store and buy one. We ended up short.
Somehow, I don't
So,
know.
everything you hear, these bolts are parallel. These, you know, they're in line with each other, which is what you want because this is going to bind if it wants to move one way or the other, the way these bushings are. So they need to be in line with each other, parallel, so they can go up and down without binding against each other. So that was key.
Now
we're going to level this out and we're going to mark here. Now when you're making a cope, we know this is 1.25" pipe or tube. This is tube, not pipe.
not pipe.
So you take half of that distance and you judge about halfway on this, and then you make a mark here halfway. Inscribe a line. And I don't have a marker.
Oh, right on.
Come on. We're gonna make a mark across the horizon as you're looking down on it. And you're gonna kind of notice where the edge of that pipe is. We're gonna make a mark there on the edge there. We're gonna make a mark here on the edge here. And then we're gonna kind of basically eyeball center. We're looking at center there of that line. We're gonna go from this edge all the way down to what appears to be the edge of that pipe. And we're gonna do the same here. From here to here. Now these are obviously rough lines because I have a really crappy fine point Sharpie here. So now if you look at the profile, right, these are the lines you're gonna keep. So you're gonna cut all this off and cut all that off, and you should end up with a pretty close cope. Pretty close cope. Now, obviously, it goes without saying, is stay on the inside of all those marks so that you have room for oops. You should always have room for oops.
Whoops.
So see, we got a rough cut. Now, the trick using a cutoff wheel, I'd rather use a cutoff wheel because I always have really bad results with the chop saw. Especially if you're doing multiple angles. I can draw on one side and just sit here. But make sure you keep it upright, you know, at a 90. And if you're going to cut it crooked, push out. You know what I mean? Away from your cut.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can always trim back.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Right, obviously, I left a lot of room for error. Right?
Which is fine.
Which is fine. We just did a rough cut. So now we're going to trim back, kind of make a, you know, the bowl shape or whatever, you know. And then we'll put it on there.
Tight.
But yeah, it looks like my marks are pretty accurate. Looking down on it now. You just gotta trim it up. You can probably do it like this on the truck. Pretty close, really close. But I can see while I'm touching here and here. Now if you look at the pipe, these are the thickest parts of the pipe. Might I also mention, make sure you grind back some of that cope. You don't want a sharp end on your cope before you weld. You want as much weld material to weld to as possible.
Polishing my rod.
One thing I forgot to mention, when you're welding like chromoly or tube or whatever, especially if you're TIG welding, cleanliness is key. You know, same with taking a bath. You don't go rub up on a nice slate if you haven't showered for 4 weeks. So make sure, maybe you do. Make sure you take a piece of sandpaper, rough it up, sand it down, wipe it off, make sure it's good, clean, so you guys can have fun. we're talking about the suspension still. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do now. We got everything cut, got the camera set up. We're gonna tack this triangulated piece in place, and then we're gonna cut it loose and make sure it works before we cut the frame out. Here we go. Yay!
F***ing A, Cotton.
F***ing A, man. F***ing A.
That's it for now. I think next time you're gonna see us probably fully weld the triangulated. You're gonna see everything welded out, and you're gonna see us mess with that front bar. But yeah, on that note,
See you around.
go hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe, comment, and share with your friends. You can also check out our website. It's garagejunkyapparel.com. We have all our shirts available for purchase. We'll see you next week.